Good Monday morning. What's going on, everybody? AirCareDriverLineup.com, world's located steering wheel holder. Of course, many of you will be watching this long after Monday and probably not on a morning, but it's Monday morning for me. And the truck's a little bit of a mess. I apologize. We pulled some of our bedding out, doing laundry, trying to get rolling today. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so. This is a daily video channel of our trucking journey with Prime Inc. So a lot of things I'm going to say occasionally are attached to videos that I've previously said. So you want to make sure you get them all in consecutive order. Anyway, so today I'm finally responding to Wombats, the user who commented last week asking about freight lanes discussion. And I said I was going to do it the next day, and I didn't do it. I'm way behind on videos that I need to do. Tonight I've got to do a video on JDQ Transportation's epic gift for our future baby. So I'll be plugging that tonight. It's going to be pretty awesome. But in this video, I want to talk about freight lanes in responding to that comment asking about how to know what lanes to run, which to avoid, things like that. Now, let me say as a precursor or preemptively that this video is directly related to running freight for Prime Inc. That's who I drive for, that's who I've always drive for, and that's who I probably always will drive for. I don't need comments telling me that I'm not smart driving for Prime Inc. or that I'm not making money for driving for Prime Inc. I just bought 2 trucks, paid $30,000 down, well, with extras and deposits, and I'm planning to order a third. Don't tell me I can't make money at Prime Inc. You can make great money at Prime Inc. A lot of good possibilities. Don't waste your time with those stupid comments. So, freight lanes. Now, I did a video about this like 6 months ago, and it's really important to understand, first and foremost, that Prime Inc. Has, of course, a huge diverse range of freight, especially in refrigerated reefer division, but you only have a really small amount of control over the lanes you run. That's just the reality of it. I don't want to imply that you have a whole lot of control over it. Yes, we are not forced dispatch as lease operators, but if you sit here and say no to 1,000 loads, while they can't technically fire you, they'll just cancel your service contract. So you can't, you're not forced dispatch, but you're also not promised or guaranteed that you can remain in contract with Prime hauling freight forever. So you have to understand that you're going to have to run most loads proposed to you. And that's just the way the Prime network works. That's the way their freight lanes are set up. They have customers that are prioritized. They have freight that's prioritized, and they need trucks to haul that freight. So you're gonna have to run most of what's proposed to you, which gives you very little control over what lanes you run. That said, and there's a lot of variables too, a lot of variables. That said, you do have some level of control over it if you can be strategic about it and pick and choose your battles wisely. And just to give you a couple examples, so I don't go to California anymore. My fleet manager doesn't even bother proposing anything west of Denver because he knows we generally just don't do it. And we have our reasons for it, and we've explained those reasons for it. And there's a lot of trucks that love going to California and hate to go to the Northeast. We're the opposite. We have no problem going to the Northeast, but I just don't like to run my truck out west. And that's just a personal preference. To me, it doesn't prove profitable over staying more in the Midwest and East. It's too hard on my truck. Fuel is too expensive. In winter, it just really messes things up, and that's just a preference for me. But when we let's say you're running yogurt out to California. A lot of you prime drivers will know that load really well. It has a wide open window on it for dropping in California, in the LA area, wide open. Sometimes it's like 3 to 5 days. And it is a drop and hook at the 90, which the 90 is the last stop for a prime load. And you can go drop anytime, 24/7 during that window. So if you've got 3 to 5 days on that window, you do have some control over how you can set yourself up for the next load. And when we used to run out there, we would usually plan on dropping that load at about 11:30 p.m. because then we're not fighting traffic. And I would message my fleet manager, when we got to maybe Vegas or Kingman or whichever direction we're going from, and say, hey, we're going to be dropping this around 11:30 p.m. Is there any chance you could ask sales if there's a morning FedEx load going out? And, it wasn't always available. If the FedEx load was already on another truck, or the FedEx loads were already on another truck, then it wouldn't work out. Maybe we'd do a Walmart load or something. But typically, more times than not, by having that kind of communication and understanding that we wanted to drop at 11:30, it would set us up for a load that we could go get at, if it's FedEx, 4 or 5 in the morning. That's a drop and hook that we can sneak out of California in outbound morning traffic against the inbound traffic, traffic flow. We get a washout about 1 or 2 in the morning over there at Three Sisters, I think it is, and be in and out of LA in the most painless way possible. And those FedEx loads, I think there's one that goes to Florida, which is a long haul. There's one that goes to, I want to say, Memphis. There's Chicago. There's a couple places the FedEx load can go. But the point is, you have some things you can do to preemptively set yourself up for a good load. In the Midwest, which is where we primarily run, now Ohio is not as good for solo freight as it is for team freight. Ohio is my favorite state for team freight by far, hands down, no question. Now, if you're in training and you need miles, or if you're a company truck that needs miles, there's probably better lanes to run. You may want to run coast to coast. You may want to get out to California because you need those miles. But on my truck, I try to run as few miles as possible and maximize the revenue as much as possible. So I know that both for solo and teams, there's really good freight. There's like this square that goes from Indianapolis to Columbus, down to Lexington, over to Louisville. And there's amazing freight all the time going out in and around that square. So basically, the way that I've tried to learn it is what freight ships into that area. And the good news is there's a ton of freight that ships into that area. There's a big Walmart DC down by Lexington. There's one close to Louisville. There's Walmart DC in Indianapolis. There's one in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. There's one in Wintersville, Ohio. And a ton of freight goes to those Walmarts. There's also Aldi's up in Cleveland. There's Tropicana in Cincinnati. And there's various grocery warehouse and cold storage that we'd ship to in that area. So there's a ton of freight that goes into that area. And those Walmarts, they receive everything: frozen pizza, milk, juice, candy, man, you name it, meat, just eggnog we've taken there. Everything goes to those Walmarts. There's a ton of freight going into those Walmarts. So what you want to do is learn where that freight comes from. Do you see what I'm saying? And that way you can always know when you're being loaded to somewhere like, say, Wisconsin or Minnesota or Pennsylvania or wherever. There's milk that goes from New York down to those Walmarts. So, learning where things are picked up that get shipped to all those places in that square. Now, this is my example. For solo freight coming out of that area, you got Smithfield. There's Smithfield in Cincinnati. There's Smithfield over in Indiana. You got Tyson. There's a Tyson in downtown Indianapolis. There's a Tyson in, I want to say down by Louisville. There's just, you got Dole over there outside of Columbus. There's all kinds of freight coming out of that area, but you have to figure out where things are that get shipped into that area so that when you're proposed a load, if it's a really shitty load, it may get you up there in New York where that milk is going back into that area. So that load's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to take a really shitty, like a load that's not paying very well, go into an area that you think sucks, but is there a place that makes frozen pizzas that goes into one of those Walmart distribution centers in Ohio? You see what I'm getting at? And really the only way to learn those things is just to run whatever they throw at you for the first year or two. I've said this before, I'll continue to say it. When you first start out with Prime, you need to go run almost everything they'll throw at you for the first year, year and a half, 2 years. I did not say no to a single load in my first year. I take that back. I did say no to one load, but it wasn't because I didn't like the load. It was because it wouldn't work for my hours. I literally had no way to go pick it up. It was not possible. So I don't know if someone just wasn't looking at my hours or what the case was, but it just wouldn't work. So I did say no to one load for that reason in my first year. But I ran everything else that was proposed to me. And that was so valuable to me. And I hated it at times. Oh, I hated it. There were a lot of shippers and receivers that I just hated it sometimes. But it really gave me a big picture of where a lot of our customers are and where that product gets shipped to. So now with Jenna and I, in the last week and a half that we were out before we got here to take care of this truck, our second truck that we got Brad set up on, the last week and a half, I believe we picked up in Ohio maybe 3 or 4 times. And even took a Dole load from outside of Columbus up to Aldi's in Cleveland. So even ran a load within Ohio. Paid amazing. Paid like almost $4 a mile. So we were able to get loads out of Ohio going somewhere to where the load went back to Ohio. In fact, we took a load from Columbus to New Jersey. And then if you recall a few videos back, we had a load going from New Jersey. It was HelloFresh back to Ohio. You see what I'm saying? So you need to, there's not really any magic, there's not any magic button, no easy button on skipping the line and learning the freight lanes. You just got to get out there and run them, and you got to run them for a good year, year and a half, to where you understand that random place in the middle of nowhere in Utah that makes cheese, a shredded cheese, that goes to Walmart in Cheyenne, Ohio, Indiana, etc. Or Hood Milk up in New York that goes to Walmart in Indiana and Ohio. Meat plants that go to Walmart over by Lexington. There's Tropicana loads going out of Florida to Cincinnati. So you really have to learn where the customers are, where the product is that those Walmarts and those grocery warehouses, Aldi's, etc., in that Midwest region, where's the product come from? So that when you get proposed a load that may not be that great up to Wisconsin, well, here's all the things available in Wisconsin. So even though I don't like this load, even though I don't like the way it makes me run, I don't like the pay, I don't really like the time on it. It may have a couple hours too long. It may be a live load on the other end. I don't like that. But it's setting me up for these other products that go into the Midwest. You see what I'm saying? So I think I'm not going to sit here and tell you like here's the lanes you should run, because there is no, like the lanes that Jen and I run or try to run as best we can are lanes that have really worked out for our truck. But I know so many drivers who like completely different lanes. There's a lot of drivers who just love the West. They love getting freight in and out of Washington, freight in and out of Oregon, California, Idaho. You know, you got Chapani up there in Idaho. There's that works for them. There's going to be a different pocket or different areas that work for different trucks. And so I can't tell you, here's one lane you should try to stay in. First of all, you can't do that. And second of all, that lane may not work for you. So there's no real easy button on this. I would just say that if you're just getting started out with Prime's freight network, you need to run as much of what they throw at you as possible. And don't just run it and not think about it. You really need to think about where you're running, why you're running there. Make notes of it. I did for my first year. I had a little notepad and I always made notes. If there's a shipper out there, I actually have a patch on my coat that says "F it, we'll do it live." It has the full word, but that is an ode to one particular customer that always says live or a drop and hook, always. And my old fleet manager would always say, drop and hook on both ends, you're good to go. Well, after 3 or 4 times of getting there and realizing that it's never a drop and hook, and you will always wait 3 or 4 hours for a door, and then you'll always wait 6 or 7 hours at the door, and then you'll always have to have sales change the appointment on the other end because you're leaving late. Well, there's only one way to learn that, and that's to go there 2 or 3 times. So you need to get, and I took notes, so I know I'm never going there again. Because they just don't give a shit. They have a max of 8 hours on their detention, and they just don't care. And if you're there for over 8 hours, they're going to load trucks that have only been there for 2 or 3 hours first, because they know you've maxed out on detention. So trucks that just showed up are getting loaded while you sit there and watch. So I'm not going there again. But I only learned that by going there. And so you need to go out there and run all the freight that's thrown at you, and you need to take notes if you really want to optimize and maximize the type of lanes you prefer. And again, you don't have an extreme amount of control over it, because you can't just sit there and say no to 100 loads in a week. You can say no to loads, and I do often, not all the time, but often. But I do so very strategically and not just willy-nilly. I don't just say, oh, this is $1 a mile, screw this, I'm not doing this. I don't run for $1 a mile. I ran $1 a mile load a week and a half ago because it set me up, it got me to somewhere where I knew a lot of freight, not just one load per day, a lot of freight and product is going back into that area, so I'm cool with it. Like Hershey loads. I'll take Hershey loads from PA to Edwardsville all day long, because I almost always get a good load out of that area. Now, I don't take beer loads, no Budweiser loads. That's a whole other conversation. But there's a load that goes from Edwardsville to Ohio that can be a solo load or a team load, and it pays $3 a mile. There's a Tyson plant, maybe 120 miles from there, that pays really well. So you see what I'm saying? Like, okay, so the Hershey loads out of PA don't pay that great at all, and sometimes they can be really heavy. But you're going somewhere where it's a quick load you run. It's not very long. I think that's like, I don't know, someone can tell me 700 or 800 miles from Hershey and PA to Edwardsville. So it's not a extremely long load, especially for a team. You can knock that out in no time, and then you get set up really nice. Optimizing your freight lanes is you have to have a full understanding of where product is made and where that product is shipped to. And the only way to gain that understanding is to run everything, and not just run it and not pay attention. Run it and pay very close attention, and learn where that random shredded cheese factory is that white labels for Walmart, Sam's Choice, or whatever it is. Learn where hood milk is. Learn where your beef plants and chicken plants are that go to those Walmarts and those Aldis, etc. And learn which Walmarts unload you fast. That Walmart in Washington Courthouse, I think, is fantastic. I've always had nothing but good experiences there. Wintersville generally unloads me pretty fast. I just hate driving to Wintersville, Ohio. It's a pain in the butt, especially in the winter, to get up there because it's not on an interstate. And you do not want to take the long back road to get up there, but that's a whole other conversation. My point is, I guess, in summary, when you see prime drivers talking about, oh, that's not the freight lanes I like to run, or that's an oversimplification of the algorithm you need to optimize where you're running freight, when you're running it, why you're running it. There's not really you can't just say, I don't like that lane, I don't run that lane, I like this lane, I run this lane. It's silly. And I see some prime drivers out there talking like that, and it's like, okay, it's not that simple. You can't just say no to 100 loads a week. Eventually they're going to be like, all right, this is not working for us, we're going to cancel this service contract, and you find yourself turning in your truck and not pulling prime freight. You can say no to loads, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes when you do, there's going to be some pushback. But look, it's not personal, it's business. When you hit a deer or something happens, you think Prime says, hey, I really know that this is going to create a little bit of a hardship for you, and I'm really sorry about this. I hope you're okay with this, but we're going to go ahead and just deduct $1,000 right this second. No, they say instantly. I mean, like within minutes, $1,000 has been deducted for you. Period. That's business. It is not personal. So you have to be this. It's the same thing with rejecting your loads, but you just have to be very strategic about it. So I also see that on YouTube a lot. Oh, they proposed me this load and it only paid this for this amount of miles. I ain't running that. There's no way. I'm not someone's, that's just insulting. Okay, but did you even think about where that puts you? Did you even think about where the product that's made, where that puts you, gets shipped to? Could be really good, legitimate reasons that you would want to run that load, but you just looked at the miles and the rate and made a determination based on that. That's not very smart, in my opinion. So, Wombats, in answer to your question, really optimizing and maximizing your freight lanes with Prime Inc. requires you to put in the work and really learn what's made where and where that gets shipped to, and that'll help you be very strategic in minimizing the number of loads that you feel it necessary to reject, and the type of loads that on face value you might want to reject, but when you dig a little deeper, you want to run. So take lots of notes, be disciplined, write things down, leave comments on your own private Google Map list, whatever you got to do to set yourself up for success in the future with a better understanding of the freight environment. So anyway, I know that's maybe not be the answer that you wanted. That's the answer I'm going to give you. I wish I could say only run your truck from this point A to this point B, but that's not a reality. So all right, guys, that's it for today. Would love to know your thoughts on this. I got to go in and take care of a few more things and get moving, but another video is coming tonight, so watch for that. Be safe, make good decisions, and as always, drive to thrive. Talk to you guys soon.